So learn this before going into pen testing. Now, I say this all the time on my channel. When it comes to pen testing, it's not really an entry-level job. There's a lot of things that you need to know first, and it makes sense, right? If you want to secure something, well, first of all, you're going to need to understand how that thing works. Whether it be securing networks, you're going to need to understand networking, securing web applications, well, you need to understand a bit about that as well, HTTP and things like that. We're going to break all of that down in this video, so stay tuned. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ryan from elevatecyber. Now, what are these things that you need to know before you can really go into pen testing? And when I say go into pen testing, what I mean is if you're starting out on your journey and you're starting from zero and you don't really have an IT background, don't really have a coding background, or even if you do, but your knowledge is a bit weak in some of these areas, you need to get a basic, the fundamentals down, right? It's always better to learn from a solid foundation. I'm a big guy on fundamentals in everything I do. If you look at the people that are the best at what they do in this hacker space, right? They have a very solid foundation. And this is something that if you learn this, you can keep building upon it. Learn it in conjunction with security. If you find security super interesting, while you're doing your CTFs or whatever learning you're doing for the pen testing side, also start going back and reviewing this stuff or learning it for the first time. I'm not going to hold anyone back from learning the pen testing stuff, but while you're doing that, learn these foundational skills that I'm going to mention in this video. It's going to help you a ton, right? And these are things that I even went and learned when I was just starting out in my journey years ago, right? So first thing I'll say is learn operating systems and basically system administration type of knowledge, right? So learn the Linux operating system and learn the Windows operating system, right? Learn both of these OSs. You should have a foundational knowledge and skill with both of these to the point that you could get a Linux sysadmin job if you needed to. You could get a Windows sysadmin job if you needed to. You have those skills that they have. Because a lot of times, as an attacker, when we get code execution on a system, we're not going to get a nice GUI remote desktop type of view. We're going to just get a blinking terminal, right? A blinking cursor, right? And so we're going to need to be able to do all of the tasks from the command line. So it's really important that you have the skill set to be able to do whatever you would need to do on a terminal. So it's very important that you understand how Linux works very in-depth, and Windows, as well as being able to automate stuff with Bash, scripting out Linux processes, scripting out Windows with PowerShell. Have a foundational knowledge of those things, especially if you're doing any kind of red team work or any kind of stuff where you're going to be doing testing on an internal network. You're going to need to learn Active Directory as well. And I have a video series right now in the lab, Exploit DB and things like that, where I'm building out my own, well, not really Exploit DB, but I'm building out my own Active Directory lab Windows environment, and we're going to be pen testing that and misconfiguring it and exploiting it. So check out that playlist. It's my hacking with Exploit DB playlist, even though it's not Exploit DB in this case. We're going to add some of that later on down the line. But yeah, I digress. Go ahead and check out that video if you want to learn more about Active Directory. But yeah, you need to have a solid foundation in Windows and Linux, most definitely. And the next thing I would say is networking. Learn your TCP IP for sure. It's very important to understand networking, not even just TCP IP. When I guess there I'm talking more about TCP, UDP and stuff, but you learn that for sure, but also learn about subnetting, IP addresses, what an IPv4 address looks like, IPv6. You don't have to go too in depth with IPv6 just yet, though as a bonus, you could most certainly, it wouldn't hurt. Learn about DNS, right? Learn your basic networking stuff. Be able to understand the CIDR notation as well. And an optional thing I would tack onto this, if you have any interest in doing web app pen testing, then also make sure you understand HTTP pretty well. What the requests look like, GET requests, POST requests, all that stuff. Passing data in the URL as query parameters versus passing data in the body, right? With a POST request. Make sure you understand all of these things. Put, delete, all the different methods, the different codes. You could get a 200 response, all the status codes, right? 301, 400, 500, all that stuff. So if you really have no desire at all for web app-based pen testing, then maybe you could skip HTTP, but it's another thing that wouldn't hurt. And it's definitely good knowledge to have and prerequisite knowledge for sure if you want to get into that area. And then another thing, this is my opinion, but I think programming is an essential skill for all pen testers. So I know there are a lot of guys, even in the bug bounty space, which they are dealing with web apps and stuff all the time, that get by without knowing any programming whatsoever, and they're still able to make a lot of money off of bug bounties. But I honestly do still view it as an essential skill for all pen testers to have at least some level of programming skill. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be like software developer level skill set. You definitely don't. But it's one of those things, if you learn it, it's going to make your life so much easier. You're really handicapping yourself by not knowing any programming whatsoever. And also it matters more or less depending on what area of pen testing you want to get into. If you're going to be reverse engineering, hacking binaries and things like that, well, you better learn programming pretty well. You probably want to learn one of the system level programming languages like C, C++, something like that, right? Whereas if you're more on the web app side, perhaps just you could get by with like some Python, JavaScript, things like that. Python is a good one no matter what area of security you're going into because it's so versatile. You can use it to automate so many things so easily. But definitely if you're looking at the binary systems level, you're going to need something beyond Python because Python, that's one area that it lacks in. It's not, it has to run under the interpreter, right? It's not a compiled language, so it's not very good at the low-level system stuff. But C, C++, really good for that. And you're going to be reverse engineering a lot of binaries that are built in those languages most likely as well. So definitely something good to learn in that case. But if you're not going for the reverse engineering in exploitation of binaries and things like that, if you're doing more what I do, web app pen testing, start off with Python would be my recommendation. Just learn some of that. And particularly if you are dealing with web apps, you're going to need to know some JavaScript. It's going to help you a lot in your testing to find, like, say, DOM, XSS, and things like that, where you need to understand a little bit of what's happening in the JavaScript in order to exploit it. So, but start off with Python for sure. You don't need to know too much. And if you're going to go for OSCP or something like that, it really helps if you can create some of your own automation tools to just streamline your testing process for sure. And now another thing that I would say is you want some general information security knowledge. So one little shortcut you can use to determine what are these general things of security I need to know about is you could look at the syllabus to, like, say, a Security Plus or a CEH. Now, I'm not saying get those certifications. I'm saying look at the syllabus to those and study some of the topic, like familiarize yourself with some of the topics on that syllabus, right? Because there's some good general information security terminologies and things you need to know that is going to help you. And especially if you're looking for a job, a lot of times in an interview, might ask you about some of these things and you want to be able to speak on them, right? Things like the CIA triad, right? Confidentiality, integrity, availability, basic cryptography. You don't have to go too in the weeds because it can get pretty in the weeds. You don't need to. Just understand, like, some of the encryption algorithms that are standard, right? Symmetric encryption, asymmetric encryption, what the current standards are, which ones are out of date. Just understand the basics like that, right? Access control, and, understanding, what makes good access control, malware, just the basics of malware. You don't have to go too in depth. Just know, like, what a Trojan is, what a virus is, what a worm is, things like that, right? The cyber kill chain, understand what that is as well. CVEs, know what they are, common vulnerability exposures. Basically, I'll be covering that in another video, but essentially it's just a known vulnerability that is logged in a database, right? They officially categorize it and, save it into the database, basically, that anyone can look up these vulnerabilities. I do it all the time on the CTFs that I work on, the boxes that I show on this channel, where I look for known CVEs, right? Known vulnerabilities for a particular service, and sometimes I can find an exploit for that and use that to exploit. But But yeah, just skimming the syllabus of like a CEH or a Security Plus can help really give you a nice list of, okay, some general security stuff I need to learn. You don't need to know super in depth on any of these things. Just be familiar with them. And that's going to give you, all these things combined are going to give you a really solid foundation. And then when you go to really learn this pen testing stuff in depth, you're going to have a lot easier time doing so. And then once you get to the point of interviewing with companies, then it's going to be that much easier. You're going to be that much better off. So hopefully this video helped clear a lot of things up for the beginners out there that are watching this content. I know a lot of you guys joined, and we'd love to have you here. And I just want to help you as much as possible. If there's still any questions that things you're unsure about, let me know in the comment section below. Maybe I can make another video, clear them up, or just answer it in the section down there. And yeah, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button as well. And if you want to get into some more beginner content, check out my beginner playlist. I got the videos on screen right now. I'll see you right over there. Thanks for watching.